Good morning, St. Martin's. Welcome to the second week of Easter, Friday. I'm Sister Kerry. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Glory to you, Lord. Jesus went to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, also called the Sea of Tiberias. A large crowd kept following him because they saw the signs that he was doing for the sick. Jesus went up the mountain and sat down there with his disciples. Now the Passover, the festival of the Jews, was near. When he looked up and saw a large crowd coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread for these people to eat?" He said this to test him, for he himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 6 months' wages would not buy enough bread for each of them to get a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There's a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what are they among so many?" Jesus said, "Make the people sit down." Now there was a great deal of grass in the place, so they sat down, about 5,000 in all. Then Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated. So also the fish, as much as they wanted. When they were satisfied, he told his disciples, "Gather up the fragments left over, so that nothing may be lost." So they gathered them up, and from the fragments of the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten, they filled 12 baskets. When the people saw the sign that he had done, they began to say, "This is indeed the prophet who is to come into the world." When Jesus realized that they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, he withdrew again to the mountain by himself. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Well, what struck me this time about the Gospel in a way that had not struck me before was that there was a test. You look at the beginning and the people come, they follow Jesus. That's a good sign. And then Jesus looks at them and notices them with love and immediately wants to nurture them. And he turns to his disciples and he says, "Where are we going to buy the bread?" The beauty of this is, yes, Jesus knew, but his test wasn't about if they don't answer it correctly, nobody's going to get anything to eat. It's not that kind of test. That's not the way Jesus is. He was calling people forth according to who they were. So there was Philip, very practical. He gives the facts, as is his way. 6 months' salary, we couldn't do it even if we had it. The facts. And then there's Andrew, who's very friendly, who looks for solutions. He went in among the crowd, he found this child who had food and was willing to offer it. And he brought that forward. Not enough, but it's something. And it reminds me that this is the kind of, if we want to say testing, this is what God does, calls us forth from who we are. And I remember times in my life when I've been called to do something and I'm saying, it's impossible. And either it worked out, or it worked out better or differently from any way I could have imagined. Or it's not quite working out, but then people see what's happening. Either I'd like to think they're inspired, but it's probably more that they could see it wasn't going to get done if it were left to me. And then the third thing is that sometimes I failed completely. And the blessing of being older is I've had the chance to see the results of that sometimes. And I've had the chance to find out sometimes it wasn't mine to do. Sometimes it was for somebody else to do. And sometimes something else was meant to happen. It was a new time, maybe like this time. At this point in our lives, there are many different solutions and different things happening. I guess the wish I would have is that we would not get stuck where the people got stuck in the end, which was trying to get stuck on their own image of how things should be, and then trying to grab Jesus to make him king when that wasn't the plan at all. But Jesus knows how to deal with that. He went off to the mountain. So, to follow Jesus, to realize we're called by Jesus to do what we as individuals and as people are called to do, not something else. Important thought for the day. Last note, this is apparently the feast of St. Fidelis. St. Fidelis, I found out, was a lawyer who loved and served the poor. And he lived in time of epidemic. And he was a healthcare worker in time of epidemic. So maybe at this time we could pray to St. Fidelis, help us to keep our eye on Jesus and to follow and do that which we are called to do and to love as we are called to love. Amen.